following podcast contains spoilers.
This is my land.
And adult language.
This is my house.
Steve, what are you doing?
This is my podcast.
Nothing. This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I am Diana.
And I'm Steve.
I'm weird. And all of a sudden I added like 17 syllables to my name, so I don't know what that was about. But this is podcast episode number 267. This week we will be discussing the season finale of the first season of Tales of Walking Dead. This is episode number 6, and the episode title is La Dona. And let's get into our quick thoughts on the episode itself. I don't remember. We flipped off and on because we covered 2 last week.
We did, and I believe you went first with Amy and Dr. Everett, and then I went first with...
Also, my turn.
Vaughn, I believe. It might have been the other way around, but yeah, that's somehow, because we were right, we did flip. So, but you know what? Ladies first on the finale. You go right ahead.
Well, aren't you a gentleman? Here's how I feel, because I think if this was the first episode, I might have been like truly disappointed. But I was looking at this episode, and I did only get to watch it once. This was a busy weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it, but I framed it against the rest of the season. And this was not my favorite episode, which when we're finished chatting about this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about how we felt about the season as a whole. But this, I would put this like in the middle. It was by far not the worst, because I think they at least made the effort to try and be outside the box. But I think there were some issues with continuity of what kind of form they were trying to do. It felt like they were sort of in 2 different lanes and not sure which one they wanted to stick with. Some of the writing was a little and there were some situations that were but I wish they could have gotten a chance to like rewrite this episode, or like show this to people and get some feedback and try again, because I don't think it was a terrible idea. I liked a lot of the they did a really great job with some of the visuals, some of sort of the, air quotes here, classic sort of horror feel moments here and there. So I would say I would put this at a 50-50 for me. I didn't hate it, but it was not my favorite one. Kind of in the middle, slightly meh, slightly okay. So,
all right.
What did you think of the episode?
I did pretty much the same thing. That I think there was some effective moments in it. Like you were saying with the with a lot of the creepy, haunted house, seeing, hearing things stuff. But I was definitely a little confused by what they were trying to do, and I was really hoping when I watched the second time I'd get a better feel for it, because I'm not sure if it was just the writing was a little, not all there, or the first time I saw it, I really thought it was an editing thing, that someone, whether it was the director or maybe the producers or someone, went in and just hacked this up. Okay. And really in the editing room made a lot of changes, because, and there's one point in particular that I'll point out, and I'll see if you remember it, and if you're like, yeah, that did seem weird to me, because there's a moment in here at about the 37-minute mark, so it's near the end, where I like literally fell off my couch, like, wow, what just happened there? And it's like, to me, it was super obvious. It's like, yeah, they just hacked out at least 30 seconds or maybe a minute of this show, and just kind of they just, they cut it out and just put the two ends together and just hope no one would notice, because it's really glaring. And since they only did it the one time, I can't really say it was like a stylistic thing that they were doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You do it once, it's accidental. Twice, it's a style or a choice or whatever. You know what I mean? That's the old saying when you're talking about editing film or television. So I'm not sure. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you in that I think they had an interesting idea, and I liked how they started it off, but then it just, for me, I got a little confused by what were they trying to do in terms of who's hallucinating, who's freaking out, and is it both of them? Why is it, why does she not remember freaking out when he's freaking out and she's trying to calm him down, and all this other stuff that it didn't quite hit me right, I think, so
right.
Again, disappointed, I think it would be the best way. Not the worst, but
Right.
Definitely not, it wasn't as good. I mean, like, last week, episode 5, Devon, I think that one was by far the best. And I think this one had a chance to be up there with it, but they just didn't quite pull it all off. They didn't quite execute it.
Yeah, I'll agree with that for sure. All right, well, let's get into discussing details on the episode itself. Before we get into those particular back and forth details there, let's first remind the listeners what we were expecting in this episode with a quick episode description. So, Steve, take it away.
All right, well, this week's episode of Tales of the Walking Dead is being brought to you by La Dona Alma Zombie Apocalypse Bed and Breakfast. Are you tired, hungry, cold? Did you just murder all the people you're with and now they're back as somnambulos? Do you just need a place to hold up for a while? Then why not try La Dona Alma Zombie Apocalypse Bread and Breakfast? At La Dona, we have it all. Warm beds, working water, blood-dripping walls, whispery voices, annoying pets, creepy root cellars, and a never-ending supply of lit candles. Our friendly and courteous staff are willing to literally drop dead to make your stay memorable. So make your reservation today at La Dona Alma Zombie Apocalypse Bed and Breakfast. But remember, it's only for one night. We'll be rooting for you. All right, so there you go.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not sure I want to stay at that bed and breakfast, but I don't know, maybe one of our listeners would. If they're
look, as long as it's only one night, I think you're okay.
Well, that's what they were supposed to do, and they just didn't stick with that. So
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
so yeah, maybe it's all about the one night. Yeah,
I don't know.
They stayed beyond the one night. They shouldn't have
did.
done it.
That's right. Well, just remember, the management is rooting for you.
Yeah. Yeah, terrible.
All right. Hey, come on. You laughed, so that's the important thing.
I
All right.
chortled.
Yeah, that's true. It was definitely forced, but it was there. The episode description is as follows. And again, this is for Tales of the Walking Dead, episode 1.6, La Dona. And it is a haunting tale of an apocalypse traumatized couple who may or may not be tormented by a haunted house. Frightening memories coupled with inexplicable phenomena in the house take a toll on the couple's psyche and their relationship. And that is the episode description. And that was one of their wordier ones. Usually, you don't get that.
They're not that filled with words.
Yeah, usually it'd be like, if this was a regular episode, it'd be like a couple in the woods find a house.
Yeah.
And you're like,
that's not wrong, but it's not quite the full, shebang that we would expect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, and interestingly enough, I was going to say when I was doing the research on the writer and the director and all that stuff, I went to the Walking Dead wiki, which is a wonderful resource database.
Oh yeah.
Everything.
Oh yeah.
And they, first of all, the interesting thing is that initially this episode was supposed to be the 4th episode of the season.
Oh.
And it was changed, and there was no official reason given as to why it was moved to number 6. And so that right there, when I heard that, that kind of confirmed some of my suspicion of, there was clearly some post changes being done to this episode.
Yeah.
That they were like, oh my God, we're not happy with it, so we're trying to rejigger it, so let's push it back further in the season so we have a little more time, to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I thought that was interesting. And then I'm trying to pull up. They had a different initially. They had a different episode description for this episode, and I'm trying to get over to that page, but my computer is working very slowly, so we'll have to come back to that. So
we'll come back to it. Let's chat first about the information you found about writer-director. And we got I got some stuff on my list, and so do you. We got plenty of stuff to talk about, so we can circle back to that once it comes up on the screen.
It's just funny because you talk about the we're rooting for you joke. They kind of did that joke in their description. So
stop it.
It is. I laughed out loud. I'm like, oh, that would have been great. Oh, come on, AMC, have a sense of humor. But no, they didn't. So
no, they did not.
Anyway, so the writer and director for this episode is kind of like the one for Amy and Dr. Everett, if you remember that episode, in that the writer and the director are noobs. They're rookies.
Oh.
And this time around, it's the same thing. The team is a pair of ladies, and our writer is a gal named Lindsay Villarreal. And this is her first Walking Dead credit, but she does have a bunch of other writing credits. She has worked on Mad Men, Bates Motel, The Strain, Jessica Jones, The Purge, and Resident Evil. And I'm not sure if Resident Evil is the Resident Evil series or if it is one of the films. It did not say. But anyway, so she's got some chops on some decent shows, so I like that. And then our director is a gal named Deborah Kampmeyer, and again, this is her only Walking Dead credit, so it's just this episode. But as far as other TV stuff, she has directed shows on Clarice, which is a series that you and I kind of liked, that got the hammer way too soon, right?
Yeah, I got the hammer.
Oh, yeah. And then as well, FBI International, which is a show that runs on CBS, part of their FBI family. They've got FBI and FBI Most Wanted and FBI International. And she also has directed for Star Trek Discovery. So, again, she has some chops as well in terms of other televisions that she programs that she has worked on. So, but this is their first effort in the Walking Dead universe.
Nice. All right. So let's start from the beginning. So let's start. I did enjoy that they also, much like the Devon episode, they played with the idea of, we're going to start this episode off with some sort of dramatic action happening, which was, of course, Dolly and Eric. They both had like blood on their face, and you don't know where they are, what's happening. It's dark, and then it flashes to something else. But like for that first establishing like 10 to 15 seconds, you're like, who are these people? What is happening? What did they just go through? And you have no information other than visual. You have, and they did the same thing with Devon when they started out. They went in a different direction with this one than they did with Devon from there. But I thought that that's interesting because you and I have talked these last few weeks about the idea of a anthology show. We're not going to get that backstory. We may have episodes like this where it's like there is, 6 weeks worth of action that happened, and then we don't know anything about that, and then all of a sudden, boom, we are placed in the final 2 days of what happened to, like, say, Dolly and Eric, and we won't know that backstory, and we have to be okay with that. And it's all about how those writers and the actors and the director, how they are able to pull you in without you having that extra information. And I think in Devon, they did that really well, because the elements that they were using really sort of, at least I feel, I know that that actually was kind of a polarizing episode. A lot of people did not like episode 5, but we loved it. And I think they did that really effectively, and I just think they didn't do it here. They placed you in this moment of confusion, and then they started telling this very straightforward story right after it. So it was only like 10, 15 seconds, and then they jumped away from it, and it showed them sort of like, walking up a hill, and they're going at, they're being pursued by some walker or whatever. And it's like, it was just disjointed from the beginning. And I liked that they tried it. I just wish it had been a little more effective, if that they'd sort of let some of that confusion play out.
Okay, that's interesting. I wonder if you had watched it a second time, if you would still, have that opinion, because
True.
they do kind of, it takes a while, but they do kind of pay off a lot of the beginning, and right away. I mean, when it starts and we hear, I don't know if it's Dolly or some other gal, and she's praying in Spanish for Maria. She's saying a prayer for Maria. And then we cut to the hill, and Maria is now a ghoul, and she's behind, and you immediately get the sense that they know her. Like, that was someone that they, you used to be with, and now she's turned. And the fact that they're not putting her down, the fact that they're just like, he's just like, yeah, just keep walking. You get the sense of, okay, so they know her, but obviously they don't really care for this person very much. At least he doesn't. And, it goes on later on in the episode when they're kind of starting to argue and getting in each other's faces. You get these accusations of, they pretty much are the bad guys on the road out in the ZA. And when they come across other people, they kill them and take their stuff.
Yeah, that's what it seemed like. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it comes. And that's. Again, I'm not sure. Is it like, okay, so this is sort of their just reward, right? This is karma, that the house or the spirit of the old woman is going to get revenge on them because they have preyed on the innocent. I don't know. I mean, that was kind of muddled and unclear. But I didn't find the beginning to be nearly as, what's going on, like the Devon kind of opening, because they clearly knew. They weren't struggling to figure out what was going on and who they were and where they were.
Right.
And, it was just sort of, like you said, we're just dropped right in the middle of the story, and they're not going to tell us we're not going to get to see what happened in the previous 6 episodes of these two characters' adventures. We're just starting right here, and I was okay with it. It didn't. That was not as much of a red flag for me as it was for you. I was kind of like, yeah, okay. These are two people probably not going to live through the episode. Let's go.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we're sort of jumping to the end there, but I appreciate this is another out of the anthology where it did not end on a high note.
No.
And we talked about that last week, that it it's been nice to see, because man, they just can't stay away from keeping people alive on the main series. And even on Fear,
Yeah. Oh yeah. More so on Fear.
Yeah. So it's nice to see that they can sort of exercise those demons a little bit in this series, so that, whatever you may feel about the characters, at least there was a very finite kind of ending for them. No part 2 for Dolly and Eric.
No,
I would think.
Very little chance of them getting a season 2 episode.
Yeah. What a shame. I wanted to say too, like, when you're thinking about a place to stay for the, get some shelter or whatever, if there's a place that you've been told, or there's a legend or something that says that you you should only stay one night. You should never stay longer than one night or something like that. Maybe just you shouldn't stay there at all. Full stop. I mean, like I said, I'm not like a super smarty pants or anything, but I'd like to think I have at least some good instinct from time to time. And if someone's like, well, there's this place, I don't recommend we stay more than one night. And I'd be like, well, whatever that is that you don't want to stay more than one night, why would you stay the one night? So, again, we talk sometimes too about horror movie logic. There isn't much. And, if you poke holes in the logic of like a horror movie or horror situation, well, then now you don't have any movie. I mean,
right. Yeah. If people made rational decisions in these kind of things, it would be each movie or episode would be 3 minutes long.
Right, and there'd be no girl that would go into the lake wearing her bikini at midnight. I mean, those things wouldn't happen logically. They'd be like, oh, I'm not sure this is a smart idea. Has never been said in any horror movie ever.
Right.
That's the lines that are never uttered.
Right.
I don't know about this.
Are you sure this is a good idea?
Are you sure this is a good idea?
No.
Yeah, so that was something that hit me right off the bat, which is like, well, there's this place, but we could only stay there one night. I'm like, is that a smart idea? I don't know. Anyway, so
just on that point, I the only thing I took from that sequence is that I think they were trying to kind of let us know that of the two of them, Dahlia, she's the believer. And Eric is it's a freaking house. Let's go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so I think that was just their way, the writer's way of getting that information out to us with have her just being like, well, I've heard of a place. And I don't think they did a good job of this visually in that it was supposed to be very cold because they kept saying, oh, we're freezing, and they kept, remember he made a big deal, wow, they have a fireplace and all that kind of stuff, right? And I think it was more of a survival thing where he's like, look, you know what, if we stay out here long enough, we are going to freeze to death if we don't get eaten. So we need some place that we can go warm up in. And she's like, this place is like, she didn't actually come out and say, it's got bad juju or it's haunted or whatever. But clearly that was the road she was on. And he was just like, if it's got walls and a roof, we're going,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I thought it was about. I thought that was the reason. But you're right. It's like, hey, there's this awesome place, but we can only stay one night. Well, why? Why waste the time walking there?
Yeah. Agreed. I did think too that when you're still they're figuring it out. They go through the gate, they come up to the house. Of course, when you're trying to make a snap decision on whether or not a place is safe or not to stay, that is definitely the time when there's going to be fog, because if it was clear, then they'd be able to be like, oh, I can see the whole property. Oh, I can make a decision on this. They're like, oh man, this fog, it's a metaphor for my brain. Like, my brain is foggy. I don't know whether or not we should. So they're approaching the house with hesitation. There is fog, of course. So as they get to the front, there's like a noise, and they look and they see that she's got a bunch of chickens. Now, I know they said she didn't have anything to do with voodoo or anything like that, but if a woman is well known for being a witch and she's got a bunch of live chickens, I don't know that I'd take that as a good sign either.
Yeah, right.
The idea of possible animal sacrifice. Now, in the apocalypse, obviously, keeping chickens, not a bad idea. You get, meat, you get the eggs, if you've got the right things going on. But like that's like the practical side of it. But this isn't practical. This is a horror story. So there's no practicalities involved. Everything has an element of wrongness or shouldn't be here, or, it's supposed to put you on edge. And let me tell you, man, those chickens put me on edge. Yeah. I'm like, are we Chekhov's chickens? Is there going to be a scene at the end where like this woman like cuts off a head and throws it at these people or something? I don't know. Now, to be fair, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the whole episode, that does not happen. But still, I was unnerved by the chickens.
Yes.
Which is not a phrase I ever thought I'd say out loud.
What was definitely the biggest red flag for me was not the chickens. It was as they got close, there's like 60 lit candles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who's lighting all these? I mean, come on. I mean, and they're all
Save your
like
candles, people.
Yeah, and so it was just like, yeah, that right there, just the crazy dedication to like putting out fresh candles and have them burn every night. That's not right. Something bad's gonna happen here. So, yeah. But yeah, you're right. When you have like the the magic woman, and she lives in the creepy house, and she has like the fully stocked chicken coop. Yeah, time to move on.
I mean, I'm just saying it's on its own not creepy, but when you put it into the equation that involves this is the house of a reputed witch, we shouldn't stay here more than 24 hours. It's really foggy and creepy. It's
Mm-hmm.
It looks like there's a lot of candles going on inside, which are something that are used in either ritualistic moments or whatever it may be. Candles are definitely used in a bunch of different ways religiously or with any kind of religious ceremony, whether it be a more mainstream religion like Christianity or something like voodoo. Candles are definitely. So if you take all of those little check mark red flaggy things and squeeze them all together, not great. And again, chickens on their own, not bad. Together, bad.
Bad,
So.
yes, definitely bad, yeah.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you definitely don't want to, like 10 minutes after you meet the witch woman, kill her.
Right. So let's talk about that. Let's just I don't mind jumping around a little.
Mm-hmm.
I put that in my notes. Do you think that she died of natural causes or that they killed her?
Well, if you just go by what you see, it looks like she is having some kind of incident, whether she's choking or having a heart attack or something, and then she, hits her head on the table.
Right.
With enough force that Dahlia gets like blood spattered on her neck, right? So it's not like, I bumped my head. It's like, no, she really hit it. So it looks like, she, like if there was like an investigation, if the cops were around and stuff, they would say, yeah, it was an accident. She just had she just died. She had a heart attack. But I mean, he clearly, slammed the table and kind of scared her. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like he shot her or stabbed her, but yeah, he probably killed her. I mean, you really got the sense that they were going to stay there for as long as he wanted to, whether she agreed or not. And if she, was too objected too much, he was going to take care of her, right? I mean, right. I certainly got that sense that, neither of these two people had any problems with, whacking anyone that doesn't agree with their viewpoint. So, I don't know. I mean, what did you think? Do you think that was that they did it or that it was an accident?
I was on the fence at first. Like, I thought the way she died was, again, it could have been a heart attack, but it felt very sudden. And it came upon like right after there was conflict, so it sort of felt timed strangely, but it was inconclusive like at the time. But then as the episode wears on and you find out a little bit more about how they are with other groups, it feels much more possible that they did it. I think it's very possible that they did it. I just, I think it's one of those things that's kept like vague because whether they did it or they didn't do it, they still took over her home, which was sort of like the wrong thing to do. I mean, yes, I understand the logical part from Eric. He's like, it's a house. You take what you need these days. You just have to, and I get that, and it's true. Those days, if you find a warm place to stay that isn't crawling, the dead and there's a wall and everything, I get it. But I don't know. I think whether or not they did it wasn't. I think they kept it vague on purpose because they wanted you to sort of they wanted it to be different for each person, like how you felt about it and how I felt about it, totally different. I was not sure. I'm leaning more towards they did it based on how they acted very towards the end. But again, I think the show itself kept it like not cut and dry.
Okay.
I feel like they did it, but I don't think the show definitively said one way or the other. That was more just my gut.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, again, they play a lot with reality and perception in this episode, and it's again, like I said, I think there was a lot of stuff that was edited out of this episode, so it's very possible that there was some sort of scene there at the end where we see her have her episode and then she hits her head and then suddenly they bury her in the backyard, and then maybe there was a scene at the end where it's like they actually show you what really happened and they shoot her, they kill, whatever, you know what I mean, and we just that scene got excised out, and so we're just kind of left with, well, what we saw, no, she didn't get killed by them, but maybe,
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm not. I like I said, I couldn't really tell. Other than it certainly looks like there was a lot of monkeying around with things after the fact.
Correct. Yeah. So that's like you said, again, hard to tell one way or the other, and you don't know, like, was that on purpose or was it an editing mishap that made it not as clear that they did it or didn't do it. Once they're in the house, though, there were a couple of moments that I actually liked, I would say. First of all, I have to give shout out to an actual moment of logical question or logical, phrase or conversation when they first come in and, they have their conversation with LaDonia, and they say, and it says, you can stay for something to eat, and she tells them, go wash up. And Eric asks, the water works? And he's all like incredulous. And I was like, yeah, man, that is a logical question to ask amidst the apocalypse, because we were talking about it before we started recording. Her lamps are working too.
Oh yeah.
So there's she has a special relationship with electricity and running water, apparently. So.
Well, she is kind of magical. So, maybe she has a special account with, the local power company or something.
Well, if she's magical, like if, she has moments where she uses her powers for bad, but maybe keeping the electricity running and the water running is when she uses her powers for good.
Could be.
So she's a good witch and a bad witch.
Well, if one of the lines that Dolly says when they're on the road before they get to the house, and she's kind of like, the woman there she's kind of, and then he's like, well, is she a good witch or a bad witch? Because she lets out that that she's a brua, and or a bruya, I guess as they pronounce it, and she starts to say something like, well, there really aren't good or bad, they just are, but she gets kind of cut off, but she starts to say that they can kind of like go both ways. You know what I mean? They can do good things and bad things. It's just like, whatever it is, just don't piss them off.
That's true. I would not personally. You had a couple of things that you listed too that you liked that happened while they were in the house.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, so yeah, she gets one way or the other, she's out of the picture. Right. And, so they're kind of enjoying the spoils of, hey, we can actually sleep in a bed. It's like a bed, and they take a bath, right, and everything, and it's got hot water, and they're all excited and everything. And before they start doing all that stuff, I think it's like right after the first break, because like the woman, she dies, and yeah, that's what it is. She dies, and Dahlia gets some of the blood on her neck
Yeah.
because she hits her head and like the blood just was flying, right? So the next scene that they come to, and I thought this was really well done, and again, great horror movie moment. The camera is like, it's her point of view, and she's looking into the water of the sink, of the bowl, right? That's filled up, and she's washing off her neck. And then as she's doing that and she's rubbing it with her hand, then she moves and you see the old woman's hands come out from behind her and start like rubbing on her shoulders, and then starts choking her, and she's immediately like, ah, and it's, again, it's all in her head, because when she finally, kind of snaps out of it and we cut away from that shot, there's nobody there. She doesn't, the woman's gone. Right. And so she's like, oh, what the hell was that?
Right.
which again, right there, that's like, honey, we can't be staying. Right. Yep. Gotta go. Let's get the hell out of here now. Right. But anyway, it was really effective. It was really creepy. And you're like, ooh, it's going to be a ghost story now, So yeah, I thought that scene was really effective. And I know you had it in your notes too. So I'm guessing it struck a chord with you as well.
Yeah. I thought it was very classic, like kind of horror / jump scare moment. And it was great too, because you could sort of see it playing out before she realized what was happening. You saw the hands first.
Yeah.
And it sort of, you had to sort of wait for like what's going to happen?
Oh no.
Like, is she going to choke her? Is she going to kill her? Is she going to death grip on the neck or whatever? And it was, it was more of a jump scare and a like, haha, I'm here, like to freak her out, than it was to like, harm her. So
right,
but I appreciated that. I thought it was a really cool little effect there. Very cool. Yeah. The other thing I really liked was, can we just talk about the scene with her leaning against the wall and like all of a sudden like the Jesus comes off the cross.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, then the rest of them are like, they all jump off and they start kind of like bugs attacking her. And I was like, first of all, the CGI of it was actually not bad for Walking Dead. They either do really good CGI or they really muff it up, hello dear. But but this actually, it was pretty good. I think because it was something that needed to look fake anyway. You weren't looking for realism in the, the silver crucifix Jesus that jumped off and started. You know what I mean? You knew it was going to have an element of looking kind of, computer generated is basically
right.
It.
Yes.
So it was fine if it didn't have like, tons and tons of like realistic detail. It didn't need them. I thought it was a great scene. I thought that was really effective, and it was different than I wasn't expecting them to do something like that. And it was really kind of it was a different choice for them. I really appreciated that they made that choice, visually and
Yeah, it was nice. I liked it because, like you said, there was nothing else in the episode like that at all.
Yeah. And
I just like that they were really kind of letting us know that, okay, you know what, this girl is losing it.
Yeah.
Or is this stuff really happening? You know what I mean? It was just, it's coming at, because first, she had that the hands choking her. And then she started hearing the old woman's voice, right? And then she wakes up in the middle of the night and she sees the shadow over the bed, right? And she's and also it's like it's just coming at her in waves, literally. Everything about the house is really starting to freak her out. Or is it really happening? Again, that's kind of the discussion. It's kind of like The Shining here. Is this all just crazy people doing crazy stuff, or is there really a supernatural bent going on here? So, and it was great. It was really cool, and I like the animation. It wasn't exactly perfect, but it had just enough of it being a little hinky that it worked. Where it's like maybe she is imagining this.
Yeah.
So I like that. I thought that was a cool scene too.
Yeah, agreed. I just as on a truly strictly personal note, I just want to say, and I hope people understand, and I bet there are other people out there who feel like I do, is I can relate to a bird in your house driving you crazy. Let me tell you, I got one of those downstairs, and let me tell you, that bird doesn't tell me that I'm very handsome all the time. That's for sure.
Does it say that it's cold?
No.
Because that's what this bird kept saying.
No. It's funny because I saw someone online where they were like, they were like, there had to be someone else there because birds will only imitate what they hear. I'm like, well, that's not true because I have a similar bird. It's not a parrot, but it's a breed or a type of parakeet. And it's and he has a bunch of phrases that were taught to him, but he just regurgitates them back. Like, we'll just be sitting and watching TV and he'll be like, he'll, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because that's, my mother-in-law says that to him all the time. And his name's Fernando, and he'll say, Fernando's a good boy, and what are you doing? And he'll just like mash them all up too. Like, you could say like 3 phrases to him. You could be like, Fernando, are you a good boy? What are you doing? And he'd be like, Fernando, boy, doing. Fernando, what are you doing? Doing. You know what I mean? Like, he just chops them up. So they're not strictly, they parrot back, but they also will change things around, you know? And sometimes he'll say like some words, and then sometimes it's just gobbledygook in the middle, you know? Maybe, Fernando, good boy, and then he just goes off on some like squeaky squawky tangent.
Well,
and you're like,
you gotta go over and ask him what's wrong.
We do, and he doesn't say anything, and then I'm like, shut the F up, I'm trying to watch TV, because he's like 10 feet away from where we sit in the living room. Anyway, so just wanted to say that a bird driving you crazy is definitely the one thing I've ever been able to have in common with someone on a Walking Dead universe show. So I'm glad that they finally put something like that in there for me. So
Finally, a show you can relate to.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I felt like I related to anybody was Tara, but now I feel like I can relate to these people because they're being tormented by a bird, and really, I get it.
So do you approve of their tormented bird solution?
Well, it looks like that was just a mistake, because didn't the bird got out? I think the bird looked like it attacked him. I don't know, but maybe he hallucinated that. We don't know. Yeah. Was that real or not real?
Yeah.
Did he think the bird was going to attack him and he just put his hand into the cage and squeezed?
Well, but again, if you remember, you know, he kills the bird and he puts it in the shoebox and he buries it, and then later on the bird is back in the cage, still alive.
Yeah, so obviously things don't stay dead in La Dona's house.
No.
You know, proceed with caution, and definitely don't stay longer than a night. And dude, don't sleep in her bed. What is wrong with you? Like, that's the most amateurish bullshit I've ever seen in my life. Like,
hey, that was pure, you know, 80s horror movie thing where the dude is really only thinking with the small brain at that moment, and it's just like, come on, just get in the bed, baby.
Yeah. And of course, she's like in the t-shirt. And, it was so classic teenage horror film. I was like, this is, you know, they're like, they were following the book.
Yeah. Plus, you know, it's Daniela Pineda, who is drop dead gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And she's like you said, she's wearing like the long t-shirt as her, you know, nightie. And so I mean, that dude is just like, I'm not rationally thinking at this moment. I'm sorry. So. Right.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. All right. So, I know you were quite fond of the new term for the ghouls.
Yeah, I did make a note there that they called them sleepwalkers, which I thought was interesting. I mean, and obviously we got the somnambulos.
Somnambulos, yeah.
Right. But I thought the sleepwalkers was interesting. We haven't heard anything quite like that, especially since, I mean, are they sleeping? I don't know.
Maybe.
But hey.
Eternal sleep?
I don't know. Yeah.
Hey, if Herschel, who was, a physician, felt that, you shouldn't kill or put down the ghouls because eventually there might be a way to quote unquote cure them,
Yeah,
I
but
suppose
did
you
he
could refer
really
to them.
think that, or was he just suffering from a delusion because he was a heartsick old man?
I'd say again, I'm just going by what he said, that you put them in the barn, and then that way when medical science comes up with a cure, you can, I guess make them just be dead. I don't know. Never made any sense to me. I mean, like, how exactly are you going to cure them if they're, dead?
Yeah, true. I think I'm not sure that going, going to the well of Herschel for his thoughts on walkers when he was in a different place then,
Oh yeah.
mentally, emotionally, I
Hmm.
mean, even physically. He
Hmm.
just, he had both his legs. So he didn't, appreciate how much walkers can really take a lot away from you really quickly.
They
He was
can.
very used to, like, this is my family, they're in the barn, they're just going to hang out there until we figure it out,
So they figure it out. Well,
and by the way, we're going to eventually move forward, go someplace else, and someone else's family member is going to bite me in the leg and I'm going to have to cut it off.
that's right. But we always told Herschel, he has to stay calm. The big important thing is not to lose your head. Wait,
How long have you been waiting to make that joke? Because I'm not
9
sure.
seasons.
I don't.
9.
I'm not sure that waiting as long as you did paid off the way you thought. I don't know. I don't know. I'll leave it up to the listeners. You guys let me know. You made a point of it and I put it out too. There's a really great, like, they did like the classic slam, like hand popping out of the fresh grave. And
Oh
I was like,
yeah.
oh, well done. Well done. I mean, they
Yeah.
at least they ticked a few of the boxes when it comes to like the classic horror imagery, and as soon as that happened, I was like, yes, well done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was well done. I mean, and not just that. I mean, the hand comes out, and that's just iconic. Very, very Carrie-ish, right?
Right.
And but then you see like her come out of the mound too. So I mean, you get
Yes.
the whole body coming out, and at that point, then it's like, yeah, I think you guys missed your window to check out.
Yeah. I don't think you're gonna be able to leave now.
Yeah, no, they got a nice place for you down in the cellar though, right
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
So, and I thought it was interesting too that when the old woman uh shows up inside the house, right, and they're trying to run away, and she's like, they come around the corner, and then she's right in front of them and stuff, is that initially when you see her, she looks like a ghoul,
Yeah.
and she's kind of got the sunken eyes, and she's kind of doing the type thing, but then as they are moving, trying to get away from her, and she's kind of getting closer to them, you see like her the shadows in her eyes disappear as they slowly fade away, and she like just becomes human again.
Yeah.
And again, you just have to wonder, okay, was the original idea of this story that all the stuff that happens with them in the house alone is completely in their heads, and she's just effing with them, and
Right.
that's the end when they kind of snap out of it at the very end, when she's learns the truth or whatever, has heard enough to know what their fate's going to be. I don't know, but you really got that sense because, like we said, the bird comes back to life somehow, and then the woman is kind of back at the end, although
Right.
the last scene is just the painting. It's not like her sitting in the house having dinner. So I don't know. It was very weird, but I did like that effect. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that, and I was going to bring that up as a question, was if you thought that they definitively chose one way or the other, and I think you just sort of gave your answer that it felt kind of vague, but I was curious if you felt like, was she ever really there,
Right.
or did they set this up as being like she haunts this house and she will put you through all of this stuff and it'll eventually drive you crazy and then she'll banish you to the root cellar and blah blah blah. So like, did it really happen? Did they kill her and then she manifested as like a ghost and then haunted them? Or was she never really there, but she still sort of manifested as a ghost and haunted them and da 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 da. But with, so it seems like you think it was kind of vague, and I agree too. I'm not sure one way or the other. And
Yeah.
I think that was one of the detracting points of the episode was, in this case, I think they had to make a choice there, because that's going to tell you everything you need to know about who this person is and what this episode is about. But because they left that part kind of vague and open to interpretation, it made it a little too loose and not enough like very like solid story material out of it, or solid character material out of it. It was just kind of like Jell-O, when what we really wanted was a steak.
I don't know. Jell-O can be awful good.
It can, but it doesn't satisfy the way a steak would.
That's true.
And your knife definitely has a harder time going through steak. If you put a stick of knife in Jell-O, blah, 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 blah.
But most vampires prefer Jell-O to steaks. Huh?
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Okay. Yeah. The whole, like, the I don't want to say the tone, but just like the thrust of the episode. And I wanted to ask you if you picked up on this too. What really kind of like threw me was that they get to the house, the old woman dies, and then they're alone in the house. And for the first, like, and that's like maybe like the woman dies like, 7 minutes into the episode, right? So
right. For
a good half hour of this episode, it's just them, and then she comes back at the very end. So the vast majority of it is the two of them in the house. And for the first half of it, at least, maybe even more, it's just Dolly that's experiencing all of the weird shining stuff. Right. She's hearing the voices. She's seeing the stuff jump off the crosses and try and kill her. She's seeing the blood dripping wall, right? In the cellar. She's seeing the ghoul in the wall and all this. And Eric is just constantly like, will you calm down? There's nothing going on here. It's a house.
Right.
And then after like he kills the bird, then it's all him. Because then he sees Maria outside the gate and she's normal, right? And he wants to let her in. And then when he's starting to have his freak out, Dolly is basically adopted his role of, there's nothing weird going on here. What are you talking about? And that's what I didn't understand. I'm like, okay, so is she like completely forgotten like the last 10 minutes of the episode? Where she, and there's also a point where she tells him, she's like, screw this place, we're leaving first thing in the morning. That's what she says, right? She's like, I've had enough, I'm done. And then in the morning comes and she never brings it leaving up again. And I'm like, okay, so what happened to that, And then, like I said, there's this massive jump cut that happens, and it's at the 37:30 point of the episode, and literally Eric and Dolly are having this like argument in the house, and they're fighting about they're kind of dredging up their past, and she's talking. I think she went down into the cellar and she saw all the ghouls in the walls. And then she comes up and she's kind of got blood all over her face. And he's like, what happened to you? And she's like, they're all downstairs. Everybody we've met on the road. And that was kind of like the tip off that, like, they kill everybody they meet. Right. And so he's telling her that she's crazy. And then I think she hears the old woman's voice or something. And she looks up. And then immediately it jump cuts to she is outside the house in the fog. And she's kind of like swinging her switchblade around, saying like, this is our house, you can't have it. And it was just so jarring, because you're like, whoa, what happened to the argument with him?
Yeah. I do remember that cut. And I was like, did I miss something? But
then
it jumped right into like action stuff. So you're like, okay, I'll think about this later, and I just never got back to it. But yes, I do remember that cut. It was very bizarre, because she was like standing next to the couch talking to him.
Yes, yeah.
And they were talking about the stuff she had just seen, and then boom, she's outside.
Yeah, and again, to me, that suggests that, okay, you know what, there was something they cut out from that from, like the argument scene, in the house with him went longer.
Mm-hmm.
And for whatever reason, either they changed something in the script, or maybe they couldn't shoot something that scene was going to set up or whatever. They just trimmed it. And then they just literally, jumped to the next scene, which is she's out. I don't know, but it just definitely, that's where I was like, oh, maybe there was a little, creative disagreement over how this episode should be put together,
Right. That's
and
possibility.
somebody went in afterwards and changed stuff. And again, then when I read that little tidbit that this was supposed to be episode 4, and then now suddenly it got bumped to episode 6, that tells me that, yeah, they were probably still tinkering with this episode at least.
Yeah.
And that's why they needed the extra time. But anyway, I just wanted to ask you if you picked up on that and if that like jumped out at you the way it did to me.
Yeah, the cut definitely did. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, I did only watch the episode once, so it jumped right into her, like, because there were voices in the fog and she's stabbing and whatever, and then the next thing you know, isn't that when Maria appeared at the gate, right? Or was that earlier?
No, it's after that.
So it jumped right into some action moments, so I forgot all about it. And when you put it in the notes, I was like, oh yeah, that's right, that did happen, where there was this weird jump right when they were talking. So yeah, I did notice it. So I'm curious if other people noticed it as well.
And again, yeah, it was very glaring to me that something was cut out there for that to be that way. Because again, if they had been doing it all episode, then it would just be, okay, that's just the style where they're just, we're clearly playing with time, we're playing with reality, and their perception is not exactly what's going on. But the fact that it just happened the one time, it's just like, no, that was just them. They just cut something. So
yeah, they messed up something, or
changed something or whatever. So
and it didn't make any sense. So
yeah, and that was the other thing too. Is what did you think about that story choice where it's all her freaking out, and then it suddenly flips to him freaking out, and she is completely oblivious to the fact that she was just freaking out about seeing stuff. And so when he starts seeing stuff, she's like, "You're crazy, stop." Did that make sense to you?
No, and I think that's another thing that I think maybe they were trying to make it seem like, with some of the other points in the episode, like make it purposefully vague so that it's like, do we really know what's really happening here? Make it kind of dramatic. But unfortunately, it just further confused people. It further confuses you into like, well, I kind of thought I knew what was going on with this storyline, but now you just flipped these things and I'm confused. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed it as well, and I just think it was a fatal error to like try and create confusion, like make it seem like, do you know what's going on? And it's like, no, I don't know what's going on, but not in a good way, like not in a or you're messing with my mind way, but in a not keeping a through line in the sort of action kind of way. So yeah, that wasn't great. That could have been executed better.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what they were trying to do. If they were trying to purposefully like sort of switch it back and forth so that you're not sure, like, so who is the one having the the visions and seeing things? Is it her? Is it him? Is it
both?
neither one of them? And it's hard to tell. So like I said, because they kept it vague, it was to their detriment, because it made it more confusing in a bad way, as opposed to more confusing like, ooh, I'm confused and I don't know what's going on, like in a kind of not cute way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, right. Like in a way of like I don't understand what's happening, but it's awesome.
Right. Because that can happen,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know we keep going back to it, but there were a lot of moments in the Devon episode where I wasn't sure what was going on, but they made a definite choice in saying, what with the head wound and all, and they made it so that you knew it's not that I don't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. And
Right.
they are showcasing that to us. Here we had two people who, they weren't injured. Could they be, possessed, or could she be inserting these images in their head? I mean, it looked like they were trying to do some of that, but they weren't, it wasn't very clear cut. So without knowing, you can't be brought along for the ride. In Devon's case, we were brought along for the ride. In this case, it wasn't as effective. I don't think.
Okay. No. I agree. I agree with you a lot. I think that, the execution here that was not quite as crisp as last week with Devon.
Yeah. Agreed. Anything else that you want to make sure that we cover before we sort of move on?
I thought it was great that we got to see Julie Carmen, who played the witch, La Dona Alma. Julie Carmen's, she's got 1 million credits. I mean, she's definitely a working actor, but I think for horror fans, she is most well known. She was in the 1994 John Carpenter movie In the Mouth of Madness, which is the third part of his so-called Apocalypse trilogy. And so that was kind of fun to see her. I'm like, ooh, cool. That's kind of a horror throwback, that they went and got for this. And she was great. I liked her as the witch woman for what they let her do. So that was cool. And I finally, that my computer finally got this to load. So this is what nice. It says. The original plot summary for this episode was as follows. Dahlia and Eric are a young, traumatized couple in desperate need of a safe haven. The two discover a secluded house, otherwise known as La Dona Alma's home, where unexplainable, sinister events begin to occur. Dahlia and Eric must find a way forward or risk being rooted in death forever.
Oh, terrible. Terrible.
I love it. It's so great. I'm like, why could you have gone with that?
Oh man, but, no. Damn it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's like, way to go, AMC.
Oh man. Yeah. So nothing episode specific to keep chatting about, you don't think?
I don't think so. I think again that was, it's really I think we kind of we kind of said it all there, that it had some interesting and some fun, creepy moments, but overall kind of disappointing.
Yeah. And so on that note, since sort of discussing how we felt about this episode, I wanted to sort of chat for a minute about how we felt about Tales as a whole package. And we've talked a little bit, each week we're like, oh, this one, not my least favorite, not my most favorite. And we've sort of ranked, and I think we both agree on what our favorite was. We both liked number 5 the best.
Yes.
Yeah, and I would say a close second to that is the Groundhog Day episode.
That's 2, Blair Gina.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that,
I agree.
And I think those were very, very neck and neck. I think the only reason why Devon edges, I think, is because they went all in on the full package of music and scenery and evoking a whole feeling with the episode. I was sucked in from the first moment. And yes, Blair and Gina did the same thing because they were so stylistically different. So kudos to them for even trying it, because a lot of people, again, did not like that episode. And I thought it was fun. It was different. It was, that's the thing we said when they said they were going to do an anthology series, ooh, I'm looking forward to seeing a different take on this, that, and the other. And then they did that and people are like, this is terrible. It's not like Walking Dead universe at all. I'm like, that's the point. The point is to try and stretch and do something different when they can't do it on the main series. But anyway, so how do you feel about the series as a whole? Do you think that they achieved what they were probably trying to do?
I think my overall feeling on the series as a whole is I was disappointed.
Okay.
It was not what I was expecting. This was much more Twilight Zone than Walking Dead.
Okay.
I know that how this is going to sound, particularly with the Amy Dr. Everett episode, which had 100 ghouls in it. But for a show about The Walking Dead, these episodes did not have a lot of walking corpses in them. And again, I was disappointed. I was expecting we would see some of the variants that were hinted at the end of World Beyond. I was expecting we were going to see, what some of the, like jumping around the world to other, spots on the globe, and what was the situation like. And, we moved a little bit around in the United States. I mean, this episode is really, you don't really know. It's someplace that gets cold, but that's it.
Right.
Right. But that's it. Blair Gina, I guess that's taking place in Atlanta. Devon is, up in Maine. Amy Dr. Everett, she mentions the Chattahoochee River, which is the border between Alabama and Georgia. So that's kind of in the Walking Dead neighborhood anyway. Evie and Joe is the Midwest, with Ohio and Michigan. And Dee is somewhere down in the swamps. So it's all kind of continental U.S., right? We never went anywhere outside of the country, and I was expecting some of that. So I would definitely say I was a little disappointed. And again, I loved the Twilight Zone stories. I think that's fine, but I think they could have gotten away with doing one of the 6 having some strange supernatural bent to it besides the ghouls, and I would have been fine with it. I kept waiting for, when are we going to get the story of something simple, like, someone's trapped in a room and there are, literally are 1,000 ghouls outside and there's no way that they'll get away, and it's them kind of like, thinking about how they got there or remembering something, and figuring out what are they going to do? Are they going to just kill them? Something like that. I kept expecting a story like that to pop up, and we never really got anything like that. So, and I think we kind of pointed this out too, is that not a lot of action in these episodes.
Right. Yeah.
It's a lot of, people talking, and again, that can be very effective. I'm not saying it can't, but just not what I thought they were going to give us with this show. Well, what was your thoughts on the whole season?
I would say, when you sort of frame it that way, I'd hate to say disappointed. But I think that that's kind of where I'm leaning toward. I think that they took some risks with 2 and 5, especially with 2. I mean, it was so out there and so different and so polarizing. So many people just did not like it. So I appreciated that they took the opportunity. You've got this 6 episode opportunity to, take some risks. I wouldn't have been surprised if we'd seen like a musical episode, like, you know what I mean? Like, what's something, you walk into the writer's room and you say, what's something you've always wanted to do, like theme or thematic wise, for an episode that we've never been able to do, and you could do it right now, what would it be? You know what I mean? Like, and I think we saw a little bit of that, but I think you're right. I think they could have done more. And I agree. Like, when they first announced this, everybody was talking about, they anchored it to the main show too much in like expectation. I think they should have come right out and said that they were planning on having, yes, the D story connects to the main series, but nothing else does.
Right.
And I think when it first happened, people were like, oh, I'd love to see an Abraham backstory, or I'd love to see, like, what about a Tyrese backstory, or this backstory, or, this, that, and the other. And those are all great ideas. Those are things, again, I'd like to see. Those are people I'd love to see more information about, but I'm not like chomping at the bit for it. So I was sort of open to whatever they would do. But they basically were just like, we're going to do this anthology series, and it's just going to be stories that take place within the universe.
Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah. And they just sort of left it at that. And you're right. They really did have an opportunity to sort of do like I was just saying, like they have this opportunity to do things that they just can't on the main series. You know, they can't go to Antarctica on the main series. It just doesn't make sense. And
Yeah.
it's not
Right. Yeah.
And to just say it's in the universe means it's happening within the same zombie apocalypse. Somewhere worldwide within this same apocalypse is this moment happening in, you know, Spain or in, you know,
Yeah.
Baja California, or, you know, it could be anywhere. And you're
Bolivia.
right. You're right. The fact that they kept everything on the continental US was a little bit boring. They could have reached out someplace different. You know, it feels like missed opportunity. That's what I think of.
I think the other thing too is they didn't really, again, they never really told us this, but I never got the sense that they played around much with when in the ZA these stories were happening. Like, you know, like the Blair Gina, that's clearly at the beginning.
Right.
Right. But other than that, you know, like I kept waiting for when, you know, what are they going to give us a story that's set, you know, 40 years after the ZA starts, right? You know, and go way past our current people and have, you know, some story of some survivors that are still, you know, around now and what's going on. And they never, you know, again, I don't believe they ever did that. I mean, didn't you always kind of get the sense that all of these stories were like, none of them were happening ahead of or further, you know, away from where the current episodes are for the main show. You know what I mean?
I didn't get that sense, but it's funny. In listening to another podcast, people were talking about the episode 4, the Dr. Everett and Amy
Dr.
one.
Amy, yeah.
Yeah. And they said that there was an indication that, you know, with the trench and stuff like that, that this was more of like 20 years after the ZA started. And here's the thing. If you're going to do something that's that bold and jump that far forward, I think it needs to be a little bit more. If I watched the whole episode at least once and I didn't get that,
yeah,
I'm not sure that was a bold choice because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Maybe if I watched it a second time, and I'm pretty sure the people that covered it, they did watch it twice. So they, you know, maybe they didn't catch it the first time, but, you know, the second time through. So maybe there's some detail, whether it was in, you know, something that the doctor had like on his computer or whatever, and it made it clear. I just, I agree. Like they had this great opportunity to play with all of these, you know, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
All you had to do was have it take place within the zombie apocalypse and follow the Walking Dead rules of the zombie apocalypse, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I keep going back to disappointed in that it's just, you know, wow, what they could have done versus what we got. And some of what we got I really liked, but I think overall it was more miss than hit for me.
Yeah. Do you think that they will renew second season?
Oh yeah, I think they will.
Yeah. I think that they're at this point, they're so rabid for more to keep the franchise going.
Yeah.
And I think too, when it comes to this, I think you can appeal to a lot of people because, you know, if I'm, you know, I mean, Terry Crews doesn't count because he's a super fan. But if you take somebody like, you know, like Anthony Edwards, you know, his character doesn't die, spoiler, at the end of his little episode story. So could we conceivably go back to his story? Maybe. But I think you can make the push to, you know, other well-known actors and just be like, hey,
yeah, here's your chance.
It's not a full series thing, but we're doing this anthology thing, and we'd love to have you come on for.
Sure.
We've got this one single episode, and you'd feature highly, and obviously we would, you know.
Yeah, you come in for a week. You know, you're the star of the episode. It's one script. Yeah, I think they'll get a lot of people to do that. I think the other thing that they can do with the Walking Dead cast is be like, hey, Norman Reedus, how'd you like to direct an episode of Tales?
Yes.
You know, and that's another way to draw fans in because it's like, oh my God, this is the Melissa McBride episode. We got to see, you know what I mean? So there's that option too. And like you said, they know that there is a large fan base that likes this property, even though it's 11 years old, and this is kind of like a way to keep it fresh because you're not using the same characters for the last 10 years. You can do a new story every week. So I think they'll definitely bring it back at least for another season. Now, whether it lives beyond that I think is going to depend on, ratings and everything, all those kind of stuff too.
Yeah. And actually, you know what? I hate to say it, but I don't think it depends on ratings, because if that were the case, then Fear would have been canceled ages ago. I think.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what their budget is. You know what I mean? Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
if they can conceivably budget, plus this could be something they keep in a drawer somewhere. The Norman Reedus series doesn't do so well. The Maggie Negan thing doesn't do so well. You can resurrect this. And keep in mind, let's say the Norman Reedus series and both the two series don't do well. I can't imagine they wouldn't, but let's say they don't do great, but they still want to continue some of the story. Well, why can't they have them have a one-off episode in the middle of the anthology? This is
Right.
the continuation of the story of, Daryl in Europe, and he's going to be in episode 6 of this season. You know what I mean? I think that's another opportunity that they can, sort of
again, to
converge all of that
maximize it.
together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Again, like you said, they, with the fact that it's an anthology, the only thing that is limiting them is their imagination.
Exactly. And here's hoping the next time around, if they get another opportunity for a next time around, that they take advantage of the situation a little bit more and utilize their imagination a lot more. I'd love to see that, because I think it's almost like a Fear the Walking Dead feeling. I know they can do better than this. I know that they can write better, that they can create more interesting situations, that they can pull you in better. And they did it effectively in 2 episodes. There's no reason why they can't do it in further.
Oh yeah. Yeah. First season, they got to find their footing. They got to figure out, what's the tone of the show, if it has a tone, all those kind of things that are growing pains that shows have. Yeah. And I think a lot of us just assume that, well, it's just going to be like Walking Dead. So now that stuff's been done already, so they don't have to do it, but they do.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you think? We both agree 105 is episode 5 is our favorite.
Mm-hmm.
What was your least favorite?
I just closed that. Hold on, let me open it back up, because I ranked them all there. I had 1.5 Devon as my favorite. Mm-hmm. 1.2 Blair Gina was number 2. This episode 1.6 was number 3. Mm-hmm. 1.4, which was Amy Dr. Everett, was the 4th. And then Evie Joe was number 5, and my least favorite was the Samantha Morton one. And and the only reason I put that down there is that I'm kind of in the camp of the anthology. If we never see anybody from the main show, I'm happy.
Yeah.
There's
so many different worlds they can see.
Yeah, right. And particularly in this case where, look, there were only 6 stories. So, let's stay away from the main cast and the main show and anyone that already exists in this universe. And let's just tell new stories the whole time. So that right away I was kind of like, eh. Because like we said when we reviewed that one, she's going to make it. Lydia's going to make it. So right there, how much drama can we really, put them in?
Exactly.
So yeah. What about you? What was your besides Devon and Blair Gina were 1 and 2? Where did you go after that?
All right. So 5 and then 4 are my 1 and then 2. I would say then mine's a little off than yours. I would say that the Samantha Morton one was my 3.
Number 3. Okay. So D was 3. 3D.
Yeah. Then I would say. Then this episode, the La
Dona.
Yeah,
okay.
And then I would say Amy Dr. Everett, and then the
Evie and Joe was number
Evie and Joe
number
was
6.
my least favorite one,
Yeah.
which was a shame
Okay.
because I actually really like those guys, and I think
I do too.
given a different story, they would have done a lot of better things, And I think also we both agree that there was nothing in this series that was just out and out terrible. I think there were problematic episodes that just didn't fulfill their full potential. You know what I mean? They either had like a bad premise but great actors and an interesting location, but the story was bad, or they had what I mean? Like there was one big element that just made those ones that are on the bottom of the list not work very well. And I think if they can tighten those up for like a possible season 2, then they could maybe have a better chance of more of those episodes hitting. But I also think too, I hope that the executives look at it the same way. When we were starting out, you were talking about how Creepshow, the most recent Creepshow series that Greg Nicotero was working on, that they've got all these episodes, and you can probably say there's a handful of the ones that you really, really liked, and that there were a bunch of them that you were like, whatever about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I think when you get into an anthology, you made that comment very early on, and I agree. I think that you have to accept the fact that there will be a couple that aren't going to hit the mark, that people are not going to connect with. They're just going to be kind of like filler almost.
Yeah. It just not, it doesn't hit your sensibilities in the right way. So you're like, okay. Yeah. Like I'm sure there are going to be people out there that are like, a haunted house story. I don't like haunted houses. So then, you know what? That story is going to not work for you no matter what. I mean, so yeah, and that's totally normal. And again, like I said with Creepshow, there's like 3 seasons of that, and there's 50, 60 episodes. I would say at least 20 of them I was kind of like, oh, well, that was 30 minutes of my life I'll never get back. So but again, that's the whole point of the anthology, is that they're trying all these different themes and styles and stories and characters and location. You can do that. You're not tied down with Rick Grimes every week,
Right. Yeah, and I think if they gave it another shot, maybe the next time around it wouldn't be just 2 episodes that we're really connected with. Maybe it'll be 3, maybe it'll be 4, So keep trying to increase that margin, if we're lucky.
Well, we'll have to see. I wonder when they will make an announcement, if any.
Curious about that. So once we know, we'll chat about it and we'll see what you guys think. I did put a post out there, but if you missed it and you're just listening now, let us know what you thought. We'll share it next time we're recording. And and we'd love to keep that conversation going about what you felt about the series as a whole. What were your favorite episodes? How did you rank them? Do you think we're nuts that we liked episode 5? Do I think you're nuts that you didn't think it was great at all? I mean, there's room for all of those feelings, really. And I think we sort of have come to the end of discussing. Is there anything else you think we should chat about before we take a break?
No, I think we're in break mode.
We are definitely in break road. So we're going to do that, folks. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss the listener feedback we got for this episode, as well as what a couple of people said they thought about the series. And then we're going to discuss what's coming up on the podcast.
So stick around. We'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No!
Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a weekly podcast covering the hit AMC programs The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the latest episodes. Aim for the Head, available on iTunes. You can also follow them on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Ross Marquand, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And remember, always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
Hey everybody, we are back, and as always, we love us some Ross Marquand, some one-take Marquand, if you will.
One-take Marquand, always hitting it. It's great.
He's such a pro. All right, let's get started on some of the feedback we got for this episode. So, Steve, why don't you go ahead and start, and we'll just go ahead and take turns.
All right. Well, our first bit of feedback comes to us via the email, and it is from our pal Amelia, who is, of course, the co-host of the Pitnia and Amelia podcast. And they're Bitchin' Boutique, I believe?
Yes. Pitnia and Amelia's Bitchin' Boutique.
Yes. So, Amelia, hello. Thank you so much. She's been a regular contributor here for the anthology, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thanks for writing in again.
So she has a lot to say about this one. She goes, "Oh man, and I was really excited about getting a Bruja story, but once again, they gave us a story that didn't feel to me like it was meant to be in this universe because it was just a ghost story at its heart. And I got tired really quick of feeling like I needed to be taking notes and watching it super closely because I kept getting lost." And she put lost in all caps. Like, is this happening, or is it a dream, or is she remembering something, or is she just hallucinating right now? By the time we got to the end, and I turned to my husband and I asked him, are they suggesting that everyone they've met along the way somehow ended up in this woman's basement? How? Is she like the Hansel and Gretel witch, luring people in and then putting them in her basement?
I like that image, though. That's actually
I do too. Yeah, like it's the gingerbread house, right? And she goes, and then when my husband tried to answer, I told him not to bother because I realized I didn't really care, which sucks because I was seriously excited about this series. And looking back at these 6 episodes, I think it feels like being at a friend's house and they're showing you their kids' dance recital videos. Like, the kids are talented and some of it is entertaining, but this isn't why you came over to their house. Like, you were promised dinner and you're getting a bowl of Cheetos and the pressure to tell them how great their kids are, which is a wonderfully colorful, descriptive analogy, Amelia. I love it. And I think, based on what, Dee, we just got done saying, we kind of agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's a place in this world for Cheetos, and they are delicious. Don't make no mistake. But when you're promised, at least a nice roast chicken dinner, and then you have expectations for it could even be steak because
oh my God,
we know how good they can do, and now they have no strings, nothing to hold them back, and then they're like, here you go, bowl of Cheetos, and you're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. I
that
agree.
was like Steve said, very, very descriptive.
Very descriptive. So then she finishes it off by saying, if they do another bunch of these, they need to focus. And she put focus all in caps. She goes, I'm not going to be as eager to accept whatever they give me next time. So I think she's willing to give them another go, but they better shape up.
Yeah, they're on notice. I mean, shots fired.
I think so. Yep, definitely.
Amelia.
But amazing feedback, Amelia. Thanks so much.
And again, thanks so much for being so consistent and sending us some every single week. It's been great to have it every week to look forward to. So
yes.
Thank you. Speaking of someone to look forward to every week, next up we've got Alex Baelish. Alex. Alex sent us his feedback
via
Alex? Facebook. Hey Alex. And so this time, like I said, via Facebook, and he says, so was this episode sponsored by Making Bad Choices by Taking Drugs? This whole series had a very Tales from the Crypt feel for me, but especially I was waiting for the Bag of Bones guy to laugh, like we all remember he did at the start of the show.
Yep.
Now to the show. Holy baby Jesus was Holy baby Jesus is.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was plural. Were the extras from iRobot looking for work? That was cray cray. In the basement scene, that girl has a lot to answer for. Her hands are not clean at all. I agree. Do you think this was real or just drugs? I don't know. Did you get the sense that it was a drug thing?
I did not know. But I think you could substitute drugs with just, they're hallucinating.
But he makes a good point. Could she have slipped drugs in their soup?
She could have, and
Yeah.
I considered that too.
Yes.
The only thing is she was eating the soup, so
Yeah, but she's immune to it. She's built up an immunity
well, look at you with the
to
immunity
iocane
answer.
powder, and it's very Princess Bride of her.
I see.
So,
She did tell them not to get involved in a land war in Asia, so maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that it'd be inconceivable to do that. So moving on to the rest of Alex's feedback. Good points on the drugs, not clear, but definitely a possibility. Definitely a possibility. Sorry for the lack of feedback, but the fact was I was just not into it. Here's a question for you both. What stories would you love them to do if they gave them a second season? Later, soup's on. Well, we can't belabor the point too much because the soup's on for, Steve as well. I mean, he's hungry, and so am I, and I'm just saying, what stories would we love for them to do if they give them a second season? That's a great question. I agree with what you said when you were talking about being disappointed. I think things like something in a different country, something in good Lord, would they just do something in a snowbound environment?
Right.
I think that'd be great. What about something tropical? What if they did something in like the jungle? The jungles of Brazil. That would have a real, full cheese zombie feel to it. Like,
yeah. I mean, like I said, I want to see some of the variants that we were teased with. I think that is something that they could certainly explore. Just anything that's different, and I think that was, like we said, that was kind of one of the turnoffs, I think, for us, was that these episodes all were we were just given more of the same. Not that can't be great. It's just when you have basically the whole world as your stage, Mr. Shakespeare, and yet you just purposely go, we could set these in any continent, anywhere on the planet, but we're going to put them all where the main shows have already been.
Yeah. That's
just like a little disappointing, so.
And it's
that
lazy.
Would be my thing.
That's the thing that upsets me. Now that I've gotten to it, I've thought of the word. It's lazy. It's almost like we know we have this built-in audience and we can give them some stuff that's like a little wacky, but they didn't go too far outside. They did not color outside the lines. And that's what we were kind of expecting, and we didn't get it. And that's it. It feels lazy. It feels like lazy sort of storytelling that they were assuming they would have this sort of built-in audience. And I think it's almost like we feel kind of not taken advantage of, but sucks to be old. Kind of condescended to in a way, taken for granted. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Taken for granted.
Right.
They're taking for granted that they've got this built-in audience, and it's like, well, not for everything, man. People are dropping like flies for fear. Mostly it's just hate watchers at this point. I like those ideas, the things that you listed too, for trying something new. That's what we're looking for, Alex. We want them to try something new.
Why not, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, let's see something that they would never do on the main show because it's just there's no reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, go to Antarctica because there's no way that Rick Grimes or any of his people would ever be like, let's go to Antarctica. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks so much for writing in, Alex. We appreciate your feedback.
Absolutely, man. That was awesome. And we look forward to getting feedback from you on the final trimester.
I know, it's coming up.
It's going to be cool.
Yep.
All right, so moving on, our last piece of feedback came via the Twitter machine, and this is from our pal Tammy with many, many eyes. Hello, Tammy. How are you?
Hello. Tammy, is it Tammy or is it Tammy?
Yeah, I don't know. It could be Tammy. So we'll just go with that.
Sorry for pronouncing it wrong, is what we're saying.
She goes to say, I thought it was good. I love ghost stories, so I was here for it. Of course, it could have all been in their heads, but I love that the story left that up to your own interpretation of what was truly happening. So here we have someone who actually is pro, La Dona. So there we go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then
I'm glad that you'd enjoyed it, Tammy. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
great. And you're absolutely right. And again, the kind of some of the nits we were picking there certainly seem to give credence to that theory of, maybe it was all just in their heads, and maybe like Alex pointed out, maybe she drugged the food and they were all just tripping balls, and this was what they saw. Who knows? And that's the best part about art, is that you pick out what you want and you like what you want, and that's great. So she goes on to say about the entire series, she says, the only episode I didn't really like was D. She goes, I thought the rest were all real good stories. I would love to see a season 2. I feel like there are so many more stories they could tell. So there we go. Someone who's optimistic for another go around.
And we definitely agree that there are more stories they can tell. I think that they very barely scratched the surface.
Oh God, yes.
And have so much, like we were saying, sky's the limit kind of thing. Speaking of skies, why couldn't they do one in, a space shuttle somewhere, or they teased that. Why not show us more of that?
See, that was something I thought would be real interesting, is that do an episode in the International Space Station where they're aware of what's going on and they're like, we can't go back.
Yeah.
And what do you do, right? And I think that'd be cool. I think here's a crazy idea for me, which is, if you go back to the first episode of The Walking Dead, when Rick goes clippity-cloppeting into Atlanta on his horse, right?
Yep.
He sees this helicopter flying, right? He hears it, and then he, and goes, roaring off on the horse, and he comes around a corner, chasing after this helicopter, and of course there's the horde of ghouls. They eat the horse. He climbs in the tank, and we're off and running. Wouldn't it be cool to get a story of that helicopter crew and where they were going and what they were doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially since you've expanded the universe to include the CRM, it's, either they are CRM, maybe there's something different, maybe they're a piece of the military that's,
that's still going on. Yeah,
because it doesn't have to be them. It
No.
was too early in the apocalypse. It was only
that was
up. So what, like a month in at the most?
That was 30 days in, and the helicopter is not black. It's not a CRM. It's a big military, armed helicopter. So it's so again, wouldn't that be cool? Just to kind of touch. It's a way to kind of go back to the main show, but you're not doing a story with Negan or Maggie or somebody. So something like that. I think that'd be really cool. But what do I know?
Kind of like how when they did the Red Machete stories.
Exactly.
They had them all sort of tied to the same universe in their own way, but they were not, the only people that were on the main show were when they got to the Joe character from the Clones.
Right.
So yeah. All right. So coming up on the podcast, a little bit of downtime. Some of it intentional, some of it unintentional. It just, it is what it is. So there's no new episode on the podcast. We're going to be off for 3 total weeks because there's no Walking Dead of any kind next weekend. And actually, is it next weekend or is it 2 weeks? Hang on. Hold the phone. No, it is.
It's 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks until we get the new episode. So the coming up weekend now of the, whatever that is, the 24th and 25th.
25th.
There's no content coming out. The
Right.
weekend of the premiere, Steve will be at October the 1st and the 2nd, that weekend there. Steve will be out of town, so we cannot record. And then, so we will be doing a double episode the week of episode 2.
Right. So the week of the 9th is that Sunday when the second episode of the final trimester will air, and then we'll do a double episode that week.
On that week, yes. So much like we did last week where we doubled up because I was out of town, we're going to do the same thing for Steve next time we're going to record. We'll double up. But like we did with this one, we'll go ahead and we'll put some posts out there for you so you can let us know what you thought of episode 1, and then we'll put them out again to let us know what you thought of episode 2, and we'll collect it all. We'll have a big discussion. I'm sure it will be long. So yeah, so we're looking forward to that. We're very excited that's coming up. I do want to say that we are, I don't know, I'm not speaking for you, but I'm saying I'm still mad at you, AMC, because now they're full force. They're pushing all that Interview with a Vampire, and they're like, October 2nd. And they're like, damn you. Damn you.
Damn you all to hell.
Yeah, damn it. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't really care about it with vampires, so that doesn't really bother me. So.
No. It's not that I'm not sure I would watch it right away. I might wait and watch it on the app later. I'm not sure I'm ready to jump in. I'm behind on a lot of stuff, so it's like, do I really want to devote time to something completely brand new when I already know the storyline? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm interested in seeing it, but my thing that I'm upset about is that they are clearly going to do Walking Dead episode, Interview with a Vampire episode, and then Talking Dead. That's what's pissing me off. Because that's how they do it when they have a new show, and I'm really ticked off. Yeah. And there's word on the street. I'm not sure if they're official. I've seen some people share some scheduling things. It's not clear. They may not be releasing the episodes early for us. So we may not get them like in advance like we have on the app. That's not confirmed though. The stuff that I saw was like shared by other people, and it's just like a graphic that you could easily make yourself. It's not something that I've seen shared by any of the official accounts yet. So still on the fence. I would love to still have a little bit of advance access. I can understand them trying to make that amount of time a little shorter to cut down on spoilers. Like maybe they release it, because remember in the beginning, wasn't it like they released it on like Thursday?
Yeah.
Or something like that. It's like Thursday or Friday.
I think it was Friday
Thursday
night.
At midnight or something.
Yeah, right. So you'd have it all day
I think that
Friday.
would be fine. You head into the weekend and it's like, shut off your social media if you don't have access to the app. And I think it only gives people a couple of days to spread spoilers as opposed to a whole damn week. But I really hope that they give us at least a little bit of advance access, even if it's just like it's available starting midnight on Saturday, because it's just so helpful for the podcast so that I don't have to sit there on Sunday night and attach myself to the TV to watch the broadcast versions.
Yep, I agree.
About it. And I understand people. I know that there are spoilers out there. I feel really bad. We do not participate in spoilers whatsoever. We only watch it in advance to sort of help ourselves. Yeah. But I know that there are people out there who don't do that, and I feel really bad. But I like the episodes in advance. I feel bad that there are others that take advantage of it and ruin it for others. So that sucks. But
agreed.
Yeah. Anything else we need to chat about before we wrap it up?
The only things I have is that I believe it was Friday or last week at some point, they officially released the first issue of the Creep Show comic book that that Nicotero and his folks are. They're not. I don't believe they're writing them, but they are involved with their making, and they're coming out on. They're being released by the same company that released the Walking Dead comic books.
Oh, so Skybound.
So Skybound, yes. So they and issue number 1 was supposed to come out in the middle of September here. So look for that if you are a Greg Nicotero or a Creepshow fan. So that's out. And then I just wanted to say, and I was talking with you about this last week. There is a show that's on this network called Freevee. Mm-hmm. And Freevee lives in your Amazon Prime. So if you get Amazon Prime, you get Freevee. Mm-hmm. And the show is called Sprung, Sprung.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about this. Yeah.
And it is it stars our Tales of or Fear of the Walking Dead actor Garrett Dillahunt, and it's a comedy. It is I think it is very funny. And it is the showrunner of this show is the same guy who did the show Raising Hope, which starred Garrett Dillahunt and Martha Plimpton. And he has reunited them because Martha Plimpton and Garrett Dillahunt are the stars of this show. And I think it is just very funny. It takes place in 2020 during the COVID pandemic when everything was shut down. And Dillahunt is this guy who's been in prison for like 26 years for selling weed, because back in the 90s there were these like mandatory sentence limits, and so he got thrown in jail for like 30 years for basically selling weed in like high school, and so he's a very low level criminal. And so when the pandemic hit, to make the jails less populated so people weren't together, so spreading the virus, a lot of these like low level criminals were released early. And he's part of that, and it's what happens when he gets out and his dim bulb roommate or cellmate gets out, and Martha Plimpton plays his dim bulb cellmate's mom, and it is very funny. So if you get a chance, if you get Amazon Prime, you get it, even though you probably don't know you get it. It's a free thing, so there are commercials, so you got to watch with commercials. But oh my God, if you like Garrett Dillahunt, very cool. I highly recommend it.
Oh. I'll add it to the list.
There you go.
The never ends,
Finished right?
List.
Yep.
Speaking of the never ending list, just one final thing before we wrap up. I do want to say that I made every effort to get started on the Creepshow series, but I will have to try again another day. This was a couple weeks back. I had the Friday to myself. I had the house to myself. And I had the whole plan. I was like, okay, I'm going to knock out a couple of episodes of Creepshow and then move on to whatever else, comfort food TV I want to watch. But I had the whole night plans to myself. I had a couple of plates of sushi I'd gotten from the restaurant, brought home, blah, blah, blah. I just want to say to you that I was 10 minutes into that first episode. And if you've seen Creepshow, then the first episode, Giancarlo Esposito is in that episode from
Adrian Barbeau. And
and all of that. And there's a moment where I think it's when the son touches the dad because he's taken over by like whatever that sickness thing is. I didn't watch the whole episode, so don't give it away. But he touches the face and there's like a weird squishy noise or something like squelchy. And it literally was right as I took a big bite of the sushi roll, and I had a brief moment of disgust. I put the sushi roll down. I got out of that TV show and I was like, I cannot watch this right now. There's just too much connection between whatever disgusting, and if I wasn't eating the sushi, I would have just continued on ahead. It was just the perfect timing of something, textured and kind of squelchy sounding and feeling going into my mouth the same time. And I was like, oh yeah, I can't do this. I can't do this. So I have
that was your mistake, was eating sushi. I mean, yuck.
Yeah, well, sushi is delicious and you're crazy, but I decided I'm gonna go move on to something different and I'll just watch TV or whatever. I grabbed a movie and watched that. And so I did that instead, and I have every intention of making it back there, but I had to sort of get away from that moment and that night and just so.
Yeah, whatever, Driscoll. It's just excuses.
I'll make it there eventually. I need a little time and distance from the disgusting sushi incident. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna say about that. So that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for us this week. As always, we thank you guys for coming along with us while we discuss these crazy shows we love and you love too. So go ahead and send us in some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back again in 3 weeks to discuss the double episode there. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
'Cause body shots just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed. Wait.
Now, wait. Are all the people informed that we're recording?
Oh my God! It says starting recording. Diana's recording the call.